I'm home. The grey edifice visible beyond the thick forest are the walls of the place where I was born, the country where I spent about 15 years of my life. Thanks to the trees cleared out of the way, I could make out the form of the lofty tower. There was no mistaking it. Though I haven't seen it for 5 years, it was exactly as I remembered it. For a while I was looking dazedly at the scenery, as if I were in a dream. I holstered my heavy luggage once again, and began to walk slowly along the river toward my hometown. Just a little bit more. Perhaps I'll arrive at the gates before it gets dark. I didn't have a father. He died before I was born. My mother made a living by selling jam she prepares at home. Her jam had a good reputation, so we lived happily and never had to worry about becoming poor. Even back when I was a child, this country has always been peaceful, and at the same time, boring. Being a country that lives on harvested crops, our lives consisted of doing the same tasks every day. And on top of this, I would see my mother's form boiling the same fruits day in and day out. When I turned 12 or 11, I started to seriously think about becoming an adventurer. I'll get out of this country, go to many different places, and live each day of my life in excitement and discovery. Of course, my mother was strongly against it. A human is best suited to live in the place where he was born. Why can't you understand that? So my mother would say. I felt a little bad about leaving her, but I was too busy chasing my dreams. Other than my mother, there was one other person who held me back. Toto. A girl younger than me by 5 years. Toto was adopted by my mother when I was only 10. It was because her dead parents were close friends with my mother. Toto was a quiet and shy girl. She couldn't deal with people all that well, and avoided others at all times. Eventually, Toto learned how to make jam from my mother, and became good at it in no time. From then on, she always helped my mother. Unlike you, clumsy, this girl's actually really useful. After I die, she'll inherit my recipes and the shop. And you'll be good enough as a bodyguard, right? I would be teased by my mother, who would come to relax thanks to Toto. Toto and I became close to each other. We often played together when we had no work to do. The game we liked to play best was pretending to have a gunfight. With a water pistol, I would hide in ambush and suddenly jump out and surprise Toto. If you don't dodge, you'll get hit. If you dodge, I'll hit you. If I hit her, I win. But when Toto realizes my ambush and dodges, she wins. At first, I always won, and Toto ended up being soaked to the skin. But eventually, Toto would find me no matter where I hid, and would quickly dodge even before I got to say my little speech. And then I wouldn't win at all. Toto would always laugh heartily, seeing how frustrated I was. Do you really have to leave, no matter what? I don't want you to go. I want us to live together, right here, always. These words, which Toto would say while staring right at me, were much stronger than my mother's pleading, and would always sway my decision to leave. Maybe the one I loved more than anybody else at that time was this little girl who adored me. Even so, I had already made my decision, and on the morning of my 15th birthday, I set off. Those that I left, my country, my mother, and most especially, Toto, I tried my best not to think of them. I'm sure you'll come home someday, but until that day, I'll always be right here. I abandoned my country for a journey, but in the end, it granted me none of the things I desired. My vague dreams of living every day of my life in excitement and adventure was not there. It was nowhere. There was a severe drought in the first country I arrived in, and only harsh farm work awaited anyone who came looking for a job. But in order to earn my future travel expenses, I had to live there for a year. In that country, I was recruited as a mercenary for a war. I volunteered, hoping to become a distinguished hero, but all I was made to do was carry luggage. To make matters worse, the war didn't even push through. I was told I was no longer needed and kicked out of the country once I received my payment. In the country I lived in next, the people excavated jewels for a living. I gladly joined in, but having no knowledge or experience, I became a mere dog for an opportunistic company. I worked every day in a dangerous hole, digging for ore that will never be my own. I quit and waited for spring. In the last country, I became a prison guard. By chance, there was a vacancy, so I applied. However, this job offered me nothing but free time. The prisoners were very obedient and had no thought of escaping. I got tired of it, and escaped as soon as I found an opportunity. How ironic. The guard is the one who ran out instead of the prisoners. After that, nothing really satisfied me, so I ended up wandering aimlessly from place to place. I was not able to stay long in any one country, and there were no jobs that interested me enough to take. Day by day, all my efforts went to searching food inside the forest, the seas, and the rivers. I continued living this way for half a year before I finally decided to go back to my own country. I walked for quite some time before I saw the walls, and just as its height seemed twice as much as before, I heard the sound of splashing water. Animals, no doubt. I couldn't see through the thick vegetation, but I could hear a noise coming from the direction of my country, just ahead of me. I pulled out the revolver from my holster and slowly distanced myself, and then I peered at the river from afar. There was a human. At the opposite bank, there was a girl with only her underwear on taking a bath. She was around 15 years or so, with a skinny body and short black hair. I knew instantly it must be Toto. I glanced at her with mixed feelings. It'd be quite painful to admit I was mistaken about traveling. I couldn't acknowledge it, even though I had realized long ago that I was wrong for leaving my country, wandering for the sake of a dream that was impossible to achieve, and I couldn't admit it. But as I was looking at Toto, a bitter smile came across my lips. I accepted it. I was an idiot, and my mother and Toto were right. In any country, the people who were born and raised in it would live each day in search of happiness and a purpose. I used to think that this was a mediocre and dull way to live one's life, but now the idea seemed very appealing to me. Together with Toto, we will make a living by preparing and selling jam. Of course, there was no other way of life for us. I can't believe it took almost 5 years for me to understand this, to realize what an idiot I was. Now there were several things I wanted to do. First, I will apologize to Mother and Toto with all of my heart for making them worry about me. Then I intend to take jam making more seriously than I ever have in my entire life. I would take care of Toto more than anyone else. She, who works so hard each day to make jam as good as my mother's. If the house ever becomes old, I'll bake bricks and repair it. Collecting, drying, and chopping firewood would also become my daily chore from now on. But before that, the most important thing to do is to show Toto I have come back home safely. I took out all the bullets from my revolver and the lead ball inside the barrel and put them all in my pocket. So that Toto would not notice my presence, I waded through the grass silently and approached. Toto had finished bathing and turned behind to reach her folded clothes. From the bushes on the opposite side of the river, I jumped out whilst aiming my empty revolver at Toto. I had already decided what the first thing I would say to her was, "If you don't dodge!" I suddenly felt as if someone had smacked my chest hard. At the same time, Toto turned toward my direction, and I saw her hand reaching straight toward me. That hand, for some reason, it was wrapped in a white haze. It's strange, I couldn't hear anything. In the next moment, my vision suddenly turned pitch black. Why? I can't see anything. I can't... Toto? From the holster hidden underneath folded clothes, Kino pulled out a hand persuader and fired as she turned around. It was a high-caliber revolver with an octagonal barrel, which Kino called by the name Cannon. The bullet did not miss its aim. It pierced the man's chest, destroying his heart. Another bullet quickly followed and entered through the man's mouth, penetrating his upper jaw, reaching the brain. The two shots thundered in the forest, making the birds leave their nests. The dead man, still aiming at Kino, splashed up water as he fell into the river. Kino wiped her body and got dressed. She put on her pants, boots, and a long black vest on top of her white shirt. She then tightened the belt of her waist and attached Cannon's holster on her right thigh. Behind the bushes near the bank was a luggage-laden motorrad. It called out to Kino in a loud voice.
"Are you okay?"
"Yeah, I wasn't shot."
"That's great then."
Kino walked to the motorrad's spot. Sorry for making you wait, Hermes. The motorrad, called Hermes, spoke in a suspicious tone.
I wonder if he's a highwayman. But if that's the case, it's really strange for him to be alone.
I thought he was just a peeping Tom, but I was really surprised when he suddenly aimed his persuader at me.
Even so, Kino, why would there be a person in a place like this? Well, except for you, that is.
He was probably heading for that place, Kino said as she looked at the grey walls, her eyes narrowing a little. Hermes asked once more.
What would he do there? That place is just full of skeletons.
Who knows?
That country was really disappointing,
Hermes said. Yeah, an epidemic, I'm sure. Something like that, Kino muttered as she fetched out a small wooden case from the box attached to Hermes' rear wheel.
Do you think everyone there was annihilated?
There's no doubt about it. From the state of the bone decomposition, it probably happened more than 2 years ago.
Oh, I know, Kino. That guy was a grave robber. He must be after gold and silver treasures. He probably thought you were some sort of rival, and so he tried to kill you.
That may or may not be the case, said Kino, whilst filling the cannon with liquid gunpowder and bullets from the wooden case. After pushing away the wooden box, Kino took out a small mirror. She looked at her face and head, and pinched her bangs a little with her free hand. Did I cut too much? What do you think, Hermes?
It's not bad,
Hermes said without any interest. Kino put away the mirror just as indifferent. Kino put on her hat and strapped her goggles on. Then she started Hermes' engine. Well, where shall we go, Hermes? I hope this time we end up in a country with living people, and that's safe to boot.
Yeah, that would be nice.
The motorrad sped away into the forest, with the man still dead on the ground, as the river continued to flow.